All right, we're going to get started. It's our last speaker of the evening. Come on in, come on in. All right, this is our last and final speaker. We are so blessed to have this speaker with us. I know some people are still heading over from the vendors, but we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay, we've got a phenomenal speaker, everyone. Phenomenal speaker, so come on over. Be prepared to have your mind blown. No pressure.
All right, so I have had the pleasure of staying the past couple nights with Nico at Oksana's house, and I did not know him before, and he is one of the most unique people I've ever met, and he's like a metaphysical goofball. I feel like that's what you are. Nico has a pretty extensive background. He was in electrical, mechanical engineering, but now he's really transitioned into a whole other world. So Nico can read auras. He's worked with so many spiritual masters. He's traveled all over the globe. He's been to Egypt several times and had life-changing experiences that he shares with others. He helps facilitate incredible change emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally with so many people. An intro is not really going to do him justice, so I'm just going to have him come up here and have him blow your minds. So welcome to the stage, Nico.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming, and thank you for taking the time for being here. I have to say I was nervous a few days ago about this talk, but then I get to meet all of you, and you know how you're born in a certain family, but then you meet your real family on your journey? That's what I feel like. So my name is Nico, and I'm 12 years sober now of a hardcore mainstream science addiction, right? And, the way it came about is not your typical, it's kind of like the universe sends you wake-up calls and you're like, no. I'm like an electromechanical engineer. I worked for Procter & Gamble right out of college. I'm from Belgium. And then I was moved to the United States to their headquarters, and I was very successful, and I climbed the corporate ladder, and 15 years into it, I was like, what is wrong? Society gave me this playbook. Get a good degree, get a good job, then you can buy all these cool things. But I was like empty inside. If I had to be honest, I was like a functioning alcoholic, pretty much. I worked in sales. I mean, most corporate sales are like that. But then, I had a real wake-up call, which was in 2012 when my mother decided to end her physical existence here through euthanasia. And I still remember that day because it's a weird experience because, death in and of itself in our environment, in our society, it's tough. But when you know when it's going to happen, 5 o'clock on Friday, it's weird. And little did I know that experience, which absolutely it sent me, down to the deep end. Like I cracked. Like my mom was my best friend. And so I went through hell and back through hell and back through hell, and then something weird started to happen. I'm starting to have these dreams, and my mother would show up in them. Then I'm starting to feel my mother, start to smell my mother even, and I start to get all these thoughts. When I was quiet, I'm like, what if those are not my thoughts? And the cat was out of the bag. 3 months later, I'm having lunch with my first mentor, Kelly. There's a lot of Kellys here. And she was a Reiki master and a natural channel. She had never met my mother, right? My mother was still in Belgium, and I lived in the United States for, almost 20 years by that time. And we would have lunch. And it was just like my mother was there. She would channel her, tell Nico about this time in his childhood when he did this, and it was all coming out. And my mother told Kelly, He's probably going to think he's losing his mind because he's really skeptical about this, because I didn't believe in any of this subtle energy, universal mind. God, I'm like, come on, give me a break. That's all woo-woo, right? So then she said to Kelly, okay, here are 5 things or so from Nico's future that I'm going to predict now. His dad's going to have a new girlfriend in a half year. His new girlfriend is going to be 7 years younger than him. She's also going to be named Godelieve, like me, but she's not going to want to be called that. She's going to want to be called Leva, like me. And then the first time Nico meets her, they're going to have this special fruit cake like we always used to get in Belgium. And then, yeah, sure thing, My father calls me, I got something to tell you. I was like, what, you got a new girlfriend? He's like, God damn your sister. Like, I told her not to tell anyone, like, blah, blah, blah. How'd you find out? Well, Mom told me. Oh, you're talking to your dead mother again. Oh, gosh. I talked to my psychiatrist about that. And he says, you know what, whatever floats his boat, if it makes him feel better, let him believe that. Until, that's a story for another time, until one day, he was not being so nice to me while I was visiting in Belgium, and my mom showed up in his bedroom at 2 a.m. And that just like absolutely rocked this world, So fast forward, I met like a true Taoist, like spiritual master that has like what they call gold dragon body, is like a rainbow body in Tibet. Because I was like, into the new age for a little bit. I was like, man, that's not for me. I don't know about this. I want to know if this stuff are real, and I want a real teacher. And he found me years later, and then I saw really like superhuman stuff. And I had some crazy experiences, which I'm happy to elaborate on some other time, but basically I saw it with my own eyes. And not only did I see it with my own eyes, but he actually said, this is our human potential. This is in our DNA, teleportation, levitation, like moving things with your mind. That's actually not supernatural, but it's natural when we are fully connected. So a few years later, I get into like biogeometry, studying with Dr. Gilbert, who sadly passed away this year, and with Dr. Kareem, and I started to see why I had to be all science first, then have these crazy spiritual experiences, and then learn a science about the spirituality. And then I realized when the science is truthful, the science and the spirituality are 2 different perspectives on exactly the same thing. So what I'd like to talk about today, I skipped, is let's first look at, returning to nature. And I say, let's make sure we have a nature to return to. Now, nature will be here, in my opinion. Whether we're all going to be here, that's a whole different question, right? Because we are an integral part of nature. My lungs have an intimate relationship with those trees, right? Without those trees, my lungs are not going to function. So all of you here, you're paying real good attention, to your inner organs and staying healthy. But how healthy are your outer organs, right? Which is nature. So this brings us into like why we got ourselves into this mess. And I believe it's like the myopia of like mainstream science. And Dr. Kareem always talks about how what we consider to be all there is really maybe about 2%. And you maybe have seen the iceberg, right? I learned about the iceberg when I had all these like emotional traumas, and I was doing all my affirmations, and in my mind I knew what I wanted, but I couldn't do it. And I realized that the subconscious mind is what runs the show. So I became a certified hypnotist, trained with David Schneider, did countless regressions, and helped a lot of people. And this is very, very similar, but then from a subtle point of view, right? So if you really, it's the 98%, so the 2% that, science focused on is the world of the senses. It's like the left brain, if you want. It's linearity, right? It's cause and effect. And what really runs the show is like the 98%, which I like to call like the subtle realms, which is this vast, subtle reality that is beyond the senses. It's multidimensional, it's timeless, all interconnected. And that's what really runs your biology, your emotions, your subconscious, your heartbeat. You're not going like every second, beat, 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 right? Like your heart just beats by itself. And that is all governed by the 98%. And that realm is really governed by resonance, not logic or cause and effect. So there's many new like scientists out there, and they have a lot of good work. And I just chose Dr. Karim and his physics of quality because I'm an engineer. I like to measure stuff for myself, you know, and then I like to tinker with stuff, and I like to measure again and see what it does. And I love his system because he doesn't only have like a theoretical model that really made sense to me, but he has the tools, and you can learn for yourself to actually do scientific measurements in all these realms of all these different energy qualities, and that got me like super excited. Like Carrie, I'm like a nerd. I like to nerd out on this stuff, right? So he developed what he called the physics of quality. So our mainstream science is all about quantity, like how strong is the field, you know, how many, this, that. The physics of quality is really about like, instead of asking, how powerful is this energy, we ask, like, hey, what's the quality of it? If I give you 2 potions, you know, which one are you more interested in, the dose or whether it's a poison or a supplement, right? That's the quality, right? Which is how it affects living organisms. That's the quality. So he developed this whole science, which is universally applicable all the way from the electromagnetic physical all the way up into the spiritual realms, truly holistic, right? And like, there's a lot of aspects to this, and I cannot go in like great detail, but I also love that it recognizes that all living organisms are conscious. Everything from like even your electrons or your atoms all the way up to the universe itself, it's all conscious. We're like this, like the Russian dolls, you know, like a living being within a being within a being, right? And once you realize that, just knowing that, recognizing that everything is conscious, that you are connected to everything, for me, that completely changed the way that I interacted with the world. So I'm just going to go pretty briefly through this. So when you see the speed of light, and below that, that's actually like the 2%, right? That's what Dr. Karim talks about, what science looks into. So the physics of quality is interested way beyond that, beyond the speed of light, right? And there, he based his work a lot of like the French radiesthesias, the German radiesthesias, and then he really like completed that system. So the way we work with that is that you have one source energy, right? And that's like the energy of the center, you see that there, that circle. And from this one source energy, like 12 different polarized qualities manifest in our reality. You can compare it to when light goes through a prism, all of a sudden you have the different colors. But then if you put all of that back together, you get back to just the white light. You can think of it that way. So the way we work in the physics of quality is like we have the physical layer that most of us are familiar with, the electromagnetic realm, then we have the vitality, but then we have the astral realm, which is the emotional plane, the mental realm, and then the spiritual, and they're all subdivided in like subplanes. So we can measure on any of these planes any of these qualities. So in a nutshell, like what else we measure is they speak of horizontal and vertical waves. Basically, in general, horizontal waves are beneficial for life. And the vertical waves, at least for humans, the vertical waves are detrimental. And then he also, what Dr. Karim, one of his major contributions was what he calls the energy of the center. Think of it as the source energy that is able to balance anything and everything. And the way it does that, if a scale is out of balance, most of us think we got to add weight or reduce weight on one side. This is just you move the center and it's balanced again. You move the fulcrum point, right? And then one of the most important things, it takes in consideration life force. Life force is what makes all the planets, spin around each other. It's, what gives life to everything. And so we think like, oh yeah, even if we acknowledge life force, oh, it's electrons, it's electricity. No, it's not just that. It's much more. And then we got to generate more life force. Well, that's like a fish trying to create water. Okay, we're like surrounded by it. It's more a matter of balancing of all these planes, and then life force is already there, and we come into resonance with it, and the life force is present, so we don't have to generate it. It's more a balancing, a realigning with what's already there. So one very important aspect of this is resonance that I talked about. So think about like the linear plane, electromagnetic, we have cause and effect. Well, these higher realms is all through resonance. And most of us are familiar with resonance in the sense when you have a tuning fork and you strike it and you have one that's, tuned to that same wavelength, they both vibrate. The other way that we know this is harmonics. If you take a piano, you have one note, which is a quality, which then repeats every single octave. So you can almost look at that as like vertically moving through the different layers. Now, when you get in the faster of light realms, we have something that we call longitudinal compression waves. A lot of people talk about scalar waves. I like using longitudinal compression waves, they have so many different properties. They can be faster than light. They can just travel through matter. They can just travel through Faraday cages. And it has very, very different attributes. So one thing that's really important to understand about resonance is when two systems go into resonance, and that can be because they have a similar quality that resonates. Well, when they go into resonance, two systems, not only do they exchange information and energy, but after the resonance is over, both of them are changed, right? They don't remain the same. They're not the same as they were before. This is a really important point, which is that our awareness creates resonance. And if there's just one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this point. Meaning that whatever you put your awareness on, you exchange energy with, and you become a part of it. It will be changed, and you will be changed. And this is so, so, so important, and I'll go in more detail in a little bit why that is so important. So let's apply this subtle energy knowledge and like the physics of quality to maybe one of the things that most people here are concerned about these days, which is like non-native EMF. Dr. Karim calls it the invisible time bomb, right? Because like we have this myopia, so we're only looking at like the electromagnetic spectrum, and we're just creating havoc because we don't understand. But if you think about it logically, it's like, have you ever put an egg in a microwave and then try to grow a chick out of it? It's just not gonna happen. The life is gone. So hey guys, why don't we just turn like all of the earth into a giant microwave? It's like a terrible idea, right? But one of the things we have to understand about man-made EMFs, they have one particular quality, and that is the carrier wave, the green carrier wave. They call it a vertical negative green. Vertical means it's detrimental. This negative green band, it's like highly destructive because it's like a carrier wave. So you also have a horizontal, a beneficial carrier wave like that, which is what you form during prayer and meditation, and it really has a lot of benefits to where it can harmonize the energies. But in man-made EMF, it's this vertical negative green component that really is an issue, because one of the things that it does, it dehydrates all living organisms. There is actually, and I forget his name, one of the French radiesthesists was working with the shapes of vertical negative green, and he basically died because of it. Just being exposed to that energy, it was just dehydrating him so quickly because he wasn't aware how detrimental this quality was. So Dr. Karim talks about how that's one of the most dangerous vibrational qualities in our environment. Now, the other thing we have to understand is EMF and electrosmog. When most people are looking at non-native EMFs, they use their EMF meter. Oh, it's really strong here. Oh, it's really strong there. Well, it doesn't really tell you anything, because I could put a healing device here, electromagnetic, and I could put an energy weapon there, and they might have the same strength of field on your meter, and one kills you, and one helps you to regenerate and to heal. You cannot tell that from an EMF meter. It just tells you quantity. It tells you how strong the field is. It doesn't tell you anything about the quality. So, that's one important aspect. But then we also have to look at, the difference between EMF and electrosmog. So, and the best analogy is compare EMF as like a boat traveling through water, but it's traveling through the ether, right? So you have this initial wave that most of us are familiar with. It's the electromagnetic radiation, which behaves a certain way. The further you get away from the source, the less powerful it becomes. You can shield yourself, with a Faraday cage, but then there's also a secondary effect. And when you look at a boat, after that big wave is gone, you have all these little ripples. They're much more subtle, but they linger, and they travel far and wide. Now think about a lot of those going on, then they go into resonance, and they start forming a standing wave. So now all of a sudden, you have this distortion, but it's non-electromagnetic in nature. But it disturbs all of your subtle planes, your emotional, your mental, even your connection to the spiritual planes, and your meter is not going to pick up on it. And you're not going to be able to shield yourself with a Faraday cage because it will travel right through that, right? So I have a lot of people that contact me and say, I have everything wired. My EMF, is so low, but I still have the symptoms, and my doctor tells me it's psychosomatic, that I'm going crazy. I'm like, no, you're not going crazy, because they only look at the electromagnetic. We have to measure on the higher planes, and we have to measure the quality, because this electrosmog, it's kind of like when you land at Vegas airport in the middle of the night, it's all dark, and then you see this haze that's just hanging there, right? You could compare that to electrosmog, but invisible. So this electrosmog, basically, it's like an inaudible sound that is playing death metal, 24/7, and you can't hear it, but your cells are hearing it all day long, right? So it's really important to address this, and as I said, you cannot block this energy. So the only way you can deal with this energy is through harmonization. And by harmonization, I mean it's like you're not canceling out the electromagnetic signal, but you're changing the quality. And you change basically, the effect it has on living organisms from being detrimental to actually being at least neutral or beneficial. And that's also what biogeometry is based on. They just do it a different way using shapes. Right, so we can only harmonize because we can't block to begin with. Actually, I don't think it's good to block. Sleeping on these EMF canopies, I don't know if it's a good idea because you're also canceling out a lot of beneficial communication from the earth that is happening. So, it's kind of like during a fire drill, there's a lot of noise and you just put noise-canceling headphones on and then, I don't hear all the noise anymore, but the fire drill is happening and you don't hear it. So you're canceling out the good and the bad with this. So harmonization is the key, and for me is the only way forward to deal with this because we have satellites now. You can't escape the EMF. Even if you live out in nature, remember, this electrosmog goes far and wide, and it still disrupts all these different levels of our being. So how to cook your nervous system in like 4 simple steps. So think about awareness equals resonance, and what a lot of quantum people would refer to as entanglement, right? So first of all, surround yourself with man-made EMFs. Check. Step 2, now you got to focus on them, you got to worry about them. I cannot believe our neighbor got a Tesla and he's charging that right by our bedroom. You see that another 5G tower going up? There's another one going up right there. All right, awesome. So even more resonance. We're focusing on this. Now we're going to add some emotion, right? Ew, I'm so pissed off. Oh, this shit scares me. I feel so helpless. What can I do? Oh, those are vertical waves. Great. Now there's even more resonance because guess what? This man-made EMF, vertical waves. So now you're creating even more, resonance. And then, hey, I'm a hypnotist. Like, I understand the subconscious mind better than most. Probably. Here's the thing. You do this all day long. Subconscious mind is like, don't worry. Got it. You love those energies. I'm going to seek those out for you everywhere. Automatically. You don't have to worry about anything. Right? So you will find yourself, and this is no joke. Like, I see this all the time. I go to people's homes and I start measuring. Man, they put their bed or that chair on the worst spot in the house. I wonder why they picked that place, right? Because people are not aware of it, but unconscious mind runs the show, and it's just like over there. And you put it there, and now you're sleeping on a crossing of like 2 detrimental energy grid lines. You got EMF, which even amplifies that. Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. So what can you do really about this? Well, focus on things that are alive. Right? Because think about how we've all trained our minds to always look at our devices and man-made things. Look at the tree when you go out for a walk, not that 5G tower that they just put up, right? Then the other thing is clean up your emotional body, your mental bodies through emotional clearing techniques, and that's something I'm happy to teach. I'm talking to Carrie about this. Like, hey, if you guys get a group together, I'm happy to teach this for free to anybody. Only cost is paid forward. Teach more other people, teach other people how to clear it up, because now you have less vertical waves in your system. That's also less resonance. But then ultimately for me, it's about we always have access to a harmonizing energy, to the source energy right within us. So even if you are in a smart city and you are surrounded, you can always choose to connect with your heart, with your source energy. Now you become the solution, and that's my favorite thing. Like, I like to activate that and just go, like, harmonize, like, everything, just everywhere I go, and leave it better than I found it. And I think, it's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, you guys know now, but I typically don't even tell people, because I just like to go back and see, like, hey, I'm not going to say this was all me, but things got a lot better here, and that makes me happy. So let's talk a little bit of what we can do as a civilization. So I spent the last 3 years in Egypt. I mean, I know a lot of the elders, Shahrazad, Awiyan, that lives right by the Sphinx. We've done tours with the elders, with dahabiyas, where we go from temple to temple, over the Nile, like, I don't know. When I first saw a picture of the pyramids at age 5, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, where are those? Egypt, Nico. Mom, I need to go back there. So years later, I was back there, and yeah, come and speak with me. I got crazy stories. I got pictures of objects actually showing up physically in these temples on pictures that are like not there. There's pictures of just like my energy body, like coming out of my, crazy. I love it. Magic happens there. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, clearly, the pyramids were not built by slaves and a ramp, and we hadn't invented push, push, push. Okay, guys, 2.3 million blocks left. We're almost there. I mean, come on, right? Have you seen it? No, I mean, these were ancient, advanced civilization, and these ancient temples, they were not just for worship of this god or like a newspaper of what all the pharaoh did. No, nothing to do with this. First of all, each and every one of these temples are built on what we call a sacred power spot. And most of you are probably familiar with this, or like the vortexes in Sedona. And they didn't just build it in nature, they really built with nature. So they would choose shapes, materials that could then amplify these qualities and really spread them through their entire civilization. So everybody was uplifted, but also the land and the animals. And they were like vibrational centers to spread harmony throughout the civilization on an emotional, mental, physical, on all planes of existence. And this ancient architecture, it was essentially alive and planted like trees, right? These are living structures. And that's how I like to go to temples. And if you ever get to go, like one advice, don't get a guide. Or don't get a guide first. Go in there. Temples are places, sacred spaces of experience. The Egyptologist is going to say, well, this says that the Pharaoh, please, no, right? Just go and let your intuition guide you and your heart, and just, imbue yourself in the energies, because the one way to get nothing out of it is to be up here. If you drop in your heart and you quiet your mind, man, I've gotten what I call zip files there that would just unpack for years later. I'll wake up, how the heck do I know that? Something to do with Egypt. So that's my advice if you ever get a chance to go there. And also, if you want to go there, contact me. I got all the hookups. And I'll give you like a real experience, like with the Egyptians, not like on the tourist bus, like, hey, take our selfie by Sekhmet or whatever, move on, So we can give you a real experience with the elders. It's one of the things I love to do. So that was then. How do we do this now? Well, this is where the Cosmic Tower come in. So one of my hobbies, this is my first Cosmic Tower, not this one, but the one in the pictures. Her name's Leva, named after my mother, because I got it, and immediately my mother was there. What's this? This is really cool. The plants are going to love it, because my mom had like a green thumb and like loved nature. It's like, oh my God. So I named this tower. The towers are conscious, right? They're a living energy. So I named her after my mom, and she's gone everywhere. She's not pale, like, no offense, this German tower here. She got a tan. She looks more like Mexican, maybe a little Egyptian. She's in Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, Egypt, all over Europe. She's gone with me. She's flown all over the U.S. And you see some pictures here. The middle one's in the King's Chamber. I had to smuggle her in with like a horse and carriage guy and put it like under his seat. And he was so nervous. Like my friend that lives there is like, bring this in for him and meet him on the other side. What is this, like a bomb or something? Like he was all nervous, but he got her in, and then I smuggled her into the pyramids, and then we go through all the different sacred sites that you're seeing here. So for me, this is like the bridge, taking the ancient knowledge, the ancient wisdom, and putting it in a modern format, and that's really what the Cosmic Tower is. It's a portable power spot like you will find in these sacred places, in these temples, in nature, so you can bring it in your home and have that experience. So let's talk a little bit about the Cosmic Tower. As I said, it's a portable power spot. And the way, this is the inventor, Harold Thiers, who sadly passed away 2 years ago in a car crash. He was always driving all over Europe in his van, little sleep, always on his phone. He just like didn't see a traffic jam and bam, just ran into it. But he was an amazing guy and like so heartfelt. When I met him, and he was speaking. Here's what really excited me about this project. This was not another tool like, hey, let's protect me and my family. Nothing wrong with that, right? But they also had the way bigger towers that helped to regenerate nature. And that was like, yes, that's what I want to focus on. At least do what I can to help Mother Nature, because you know what? Mother Nature can flick us off this planet in like no time, but she's a patient mother, and we've been brats. It's time to clean up our room. I'm telling you, like we've made a mess out of this because of our ignorance, pretty much. So the way it works is like in a sacred power spot. A sacred power spot, the way it works is you have underground like rock water, which is like sacred water that's maybe 10,000 years old or even older. That's like healing water that has all the vibrational frequencies, and then they intersect, right? And then this creates like a vortex or like a toroidal field, right? The cosmic tower works very similarly, that it has a vessel of water in the bottom and one in the top. And it's not tap water, right? It's living water that actually the inventor and his son, who was born clairvoyant, and reminded the inventor, like, Daddy, don't you remember why we came here? We have to build the new light grid, and you're going to have to help me build it. He was an engineer, right? So his son was the one that was telling him what all to do and what all to tweak. Something, wouldn't work. And his son was like, hold on, Daddy, let me check with upstairs. Okay, yeah, you got to change this, and we got to do that. That's how they developed the actual, the cosmic towers. So we have this mixture of healing waters in these two vessels, and they contain like the full frequency spectrum of light. So there's no overlap, because if there's overlap, you're going to get the frequency canceling out or being over-amplified. But it's basically the full spectrum of light, and the inventor liked to call it a rainbow water, so a living water. And then there's a crystal in the center, and then it gets activated to where the water that's in the bottom vessel starts spinning counterclockwise, and not like the water is going like this in there. Think about it subatomically. I mean, many of you have heard of torsion, right? It's just on a subatomic level in a way. And then at the top, it's going clockwise, and then the toroidal field is activated, and in the center of the toroidal field, where the crystal is in the cosmic tower, that's actually a connection point to all dimensions. So then it's anchored into a higher dimension to where there's a continuous throughput of energy. And you see, there's no cords hanging off, right? Once it's activated, there's a continuous throughput like of this energy. And what that does is like, it basically, I tell people, imagine that it starts creating this bubble around your house. So this guy or girl right here, or it, what's your pronoun? Basically goes about 100 yards radius, around your home. And what happens within that radius is similar to what you can expect at a sacred site. So within that radius, all of your water is going to get structured and infused with the quality of the healing water, which is this rainbow spectrum. EMFs are getting harmonized, right? So you will also have a lot of life force present in this field, to where, if you buy that organic apple that came from New Zealand or wherever it came from, the moment it's harvested, the life force just starts going down. You add to that non-native EMFs, and it's going down. By the time, like, you buy that organic apple, forget it, like the life force is out of it. Right? The cool thing with the cosmic tower is you bring it back into this bubble, and basically, the life force gets infused. It's present again in the food that you consume, right? And then it does a lot of other different things. People always ask me, does a cosmic tower heal this or heal that? No. It creates an environment to where your body already has the wisdom within it, to heal. It just creates that environment so your body can thrive, and not just for the humans. Like, as humans, sometimes we get a little bit in our head, I don't know if this is doing anything, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the plants outside are like, yay, love it, right? So like, that's like one of the things I love seeing everywhere. I was just in Texas with my friends, and they had this plumeria that she inherited from a friend that had passed, and it hadn't bloomed in 3 years. And I get there, and I set my towers up, and 2 weeks later, my friend Christy's like, oh my God, the plumeria, it bloomed for the first time. Hey, Robert, I moved it in this, her husband, I moved it in this and that. Honey, that's probably Nico Suave and his towers. But, the plants respond, and it's not magic, right? It's just if there's a natural environment, a supportive environment for living organisms, they're going to thrive. So here's a little information about the family. So we have the really small one, that's just for travel, and it doesn't have enough power to help you, balance like your emotional bodies and strengthen your aura and this and that. It's just to keep you from going backwards while you're traveling, while you're outside of the range of your bigger tower. Then we have the 35, like the one you see here. Like the number stands for centimeters of how tall it is. So that's like an example of a tower for your home. And then we have the 75 centimeters. That one's 6 times more powerful than this one. So one thing people always ask me is like, I have so many square meters, should I get this or that one? Well, it doesn't work that way. It depends where you live. If you live downtown New York City or on a ranch in Montana, very different energetic environment, right? So it's more based on where you live and how much distortion there is of, what you would pick. But there's also one other aspect, and that got me super excited, which are these big ones, the 220s and the 250s, because with those, we're really building a grid for Mother Earth, for the people, and to support nature again. And I'll show you, this is kind of where we're at now in the US. So every single one of those circles you see is either one of those 220 or 250s. So you say, oh, we already got all this covered. No, we're actually going to need more in certain areas just because there's so much distortion and one tower is just not going to do it. But if you're in the range or close to these and you have a smaller one, they help each other. They work like a family, right? So the taller ones will actually support the smaller towers. And the inventor, he is a force of nature. He sold like 25,000 towers in Europe in under 3 years. He got 800 of the large towers deployed in Europe, a lot of them in Switzerland and other countries. And we're working on it in the US. And really my hope, and within my heart, I hope that years from now, we don't have to worry anymore about protecting of EMF simply because we built a new grid. So all of us can just drop all that worry, and really, you're all here to express what's inside, right? And to have a grid that supports that. That's what really excites me. So I don't like call to action because Tony Robbins, take massive action. Well, if it's misaligned, or the quality of that action, you're not going to really get anywhere. So no call to action, but a call to remembrance, because it's already, it's already within you, right? You have access to nature's intelligence, to this one harmonizing quality within. So it's really like at this point, it's either going to be a golden age or we're going to fall on our face, pretty much. So it's time for us to become stewards again of nature and stop cannibalizing. Stop building technology that drains our life force, It's more, let's align with life force. And we can build Wi-Fi routers that can heal. We can totally do it, right? But it's not being done. They're creating all these smart cities. I think it's pretty stupid because it does everything. You just can't live in it as a human being, So what good is all this progress if it costs you your life basically, and it drains your life force and your vitality? And it's not like we have to go back to the Stone Age either. You know, the future isn't just about, going back to the ancient ways or technology. For me, it's both. It's like this sacred fusion where technology is guided by wisdom to where it can serve life on this planet versus trying to replace it. So we don't have to go backward. We just need to go deeper to what's already inside and to go forward with connection to nature. We are nature. We're an integral part of nature, right? So connect with your own nature within, with that wisdom within, and, let's just focus on bringing more life force, into this world. And I see the cosmic towers as training wheels. Right now, the environment, it's really challenging. So we need some help. We need those, when you learn to ride a bike, we need those little wheels, right? I mean, you don't need them, but you're going to fall a lot more on your face than is needed, right? So they help us kind of learn the basics to where then I hope that every person, it creates a breathing room. It creates an energetic space to go deeper within. And that way we become like walking towers, and everywhere we go, we harmonize, and that's how I see the future. And if that is the case, I truly see like a golden age, because don't be mistaken, Egypt was a spacefaring nation. It was a spaceport. They were highly advanced, and we can go back there. The other cool thing is like, hey, we already really have all the technologies. There's 5,500 patents locked away. Anything to do with energy generation, anything with age reversal or healing. So it's all really already there. So what can we do about it? We can shift our consciousness. We can clean up our mess within, and I'm happy to help with that and teach you techniques, but I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to show you the neurology and how it works and how you can clear, blocked emotions or mental patterns quickly, but you have to do it. For me, that's a big part of the healing. You have to own it. So I show you how to do it, and then if you get stuck, happy to help. So anyway, if there's any questions, you can learn more on the Wellness Enterprise. If anybody has a podcast, I'm happy to come on your podcast, geek out, talk weird stuff, or just the Cosmic Tower. No problem. I can do any and all of those. And if you have any questions, please send us an email. And thank you for being all here, because you all are the trailblazers, right? And we changed this society from the grassroots, from all of you. If you knew how powerful you were, there wouldn't really be any worry. We would just be like, oh my God, we're these powerful beings. Let's do it together. And I invite you and all of you, to do that. So thank you very much. Feel free to grab me if you have any more questions. Send me an email, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you.